Okay, it's official. So I'm Doug. And you might have noticed I said I'm the Secretary Treasurer again. Keith decided he didn't want to continue for another year. His horse business is taking too much of his time, he says. So I'm back as Secretary and Treasurer.
And a fine job you're doing of it too.
I used to promise to do as bad a job as I did the previous year when I ran for the office, but nobody took me up on it. So anyway, first order of business is January's dues month. And we've so far got 23 members have renewed. It's about half of what we had last year for the full year. The next meeting is going to be February 6th, February 15th at the Tracy G Center in person and on Zoom. And Roby has kindly agreed to lead a discussion of his experience with the commercial remote ham radio application. He's been giving that a try and see what he thinks of it after using it for a month or two. And that's basically all of the agenda I had before the program. So any other things from you guys?
What's the dues?
It's for outside of Houston, it's $12.50.
Well, because I think just to be on the good side, I think I'll re-up, and I think I can spend $12.50 just to be able to harass you guys officially.
Be much appreciated.
Yeah, you don't have my money yet. I had to say that I went to Las Vegas and you still don't have my money.
Okay. So I guess we'll just go straight through the program then. Show us your shack and show us your QSL cards. Roby and I thought that'd be sort of a fun thing to try out and see what kind of discussion we can get going. I guess I'll start off by showing my shack. If I can find the share screen. And there we go. And here we go. Okay. I probably got the least important or least impressive of all the ones tonight. So we'll start with me. There we go. This is the equipment side of the shack. And got a Flex 6600 there on the left, lower left, and a Yaesu FT847 by the 1990s vintage satellite capable all band, all mode. Then the Tokyo High Power 1.5 K FX amplifier, a stepper controller, and a little matchbox, and that's it for the main equipment. Got some other things like a KX3 in the shelf and so forth, but this is what I have normally hooked up.
How do you like the Flex?
I love it. 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 Even though there's probably some things that like any piece of software, there's some things that don't always work the way you would like them to work. But I just so enamored with that radio. Well worth the money.
On the shelf to the right there, what is that?
I don't see a key. Is there a key?
You'll see that in a minute. I'm gonna pan to the right to the operating position. But somebody had a question there?
Yeah, what's that box, the black box there with all the buttons on it?
Oh, that's a what is this called? A LDG AT600 Pro 2. I bought that so that I put up a little trap dipole for 80 meters. And because 80 meters on a trap dipole is very, very narrow tuning, I had to have a tuner to allow me to go between the FT8 bands and the CW bands. So I was just use that and only run about 500 watts into it. Any other questions on this screen? Okay. Now pan to the right. And this is actually my operating screen, what I'm looking at right now. Got about I think it's a 32-inch 4K monitor there. And of course, my trusty Kent key running a little bit of a little tiny ham, we call it ham clock. A little tiny, like a 7-inch display. And I like this monitor because I can see the Flex graphic monitor, the the N3 FJP stuff in the lower right, the Flex we call it the FT8 and FT4 screen in the upper left WSGT, and Roby's little DX opportunities display in the middle of the top. And it's convenient. It's a little cramped, but not too bad. And then just to show that I'm not very neat, if I turn around and look the other direction, that's what I see.
Egad.
That's a shack.
That's the shack. That's the working end of the shack, the working storage. And then the antenna is a stepper big IR vertical, which I also am really in love with. I've had that since 2006 and had not had a lick of trouble with it. I think it's a model, or I think it's the first model we come out with of the big IR Mark 1. So that's my shack.
So Doug, what kind of radio system do you use with your antenna?
I've got sort of a minimal radio. I think that the ground is in pretty good shape as far as electrically. I've got I think it's 16 radios coming out to all different corners of the yard. Just not particularly well distributed, but just wherever I could get them in.
Okay.
But it gives me very low SOUR. I'll just about any band. It's just been a dream to use.
How
That
does it
seems to
get
work
out?
well.
What was that?
How does it get out? I mean, you work a lot of DX with that?
I got 320 countries with it.
Oh, it's 319 more than I have, so good on you.
Well, it's such a simple concept that I'm glad I spent the money. And they are expensive. Actually, when I bought this, I think I paid $600 for it. I think nowadays it's probably $2,500.
Jesus.
But it's like I say, it's a dream. So I'm going to go ahead and go right into the card stuff, so we can just do it all one throw here. I picked out a few cards out of my collection of cards, not necessarily because they're rare or anything like that, but they mean something or they're a little unusual. This is the first one. So this is my first real DX card. I got my license, my general license in December of '65. This is probably the first DX contact I made after I got my license in Mauritius Island. I was pretty thrilled by that. We were running 75 watts to a vertical in the backyard, a single band vertical that my dad had put up.
Where'd you live then?
In Cincinnati.
Gotcha.
And my father was a ham since before I was born. And this I have right now is his call to me on LCQ. But we had a lot of fun. Then I discovered girls and all that stuff. And it didn't get on so much, but my license never lapsed. Okay, next one we got here. Okay, this is just an interesting card because of some cultural things about it. This was from Belize in '67. But before it was Belize, it was British Honduras. And I like the picture on the left-hand side with the, I guess it's supposed to be Mayan Indian with the feather up there. sort of culturally insensitive nowadays, but ham better than smoke signal. Okay. This is something that probably all you guys know about. He asked me around the world the expedition that the Lloyd Norris Colvin did back in the 60s. If you read on that card, it says at this time in 67, it worked half the active amateurs of the world, traveled to 110 countries, made 175,000 QSOs, worked amateurs in 333 countries, and received 350 awards. They were really they were go-getters.
Yep.
The last one here is a QSO card. I think some of the other people have these already too, but just thought it's interesting that he wrote it on a 1 pound Egyptian note. This is from Vlad Bykov using his Egyptian call. Couple of things here. The 1 pound Egyptian pound note is worth about 3 cents US. And I look back and I remember that Vlad had been our guest September 2012 TDXS meeting. So, and with that, I'm done.
So, Doug, do you get do you continue to do QSLs? Hard copy paper QSLs? Have you gone to LOTW, or how do you do that now?
I do LOTW, although if somebody's on the expedition that's going to have a attractive QSL or something, I'll give them $4 or $5 for a QSL card. It's not that much money. I like to look at them, but I don't collect big stacks. I'm not like Alan there, who has probably 10,000 QSL cards, or more than that maybe. So who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay, take it away.
There we go. Okay, so this is my little tour. Picture out of the antenna, which there'll be more of here in a minute. Here's my operating position from left to, it's kind of organized left to right since I'm left-handed with sending code anyway. I got a K3, a Windows 10 computer, antenna switch because my antennas are switched remotely. Over on the right-hand side, I've got an ICOM 7000 that I use for what little VHF work I do. It's also a handy little portable rig because it's quite small. I run, let's go back. I use DX Labs for logging software, N1MM for contesting, WSJTX, and JT Alert for the digital stuff. All works pretty well, and it could be all integrated together. This is my tower. It's about 55 feet or so to the top of the tower. At the very top, I've got for 6 meters a loop-fed array, a 5-element loop-fed array. For 20 through 10 meters, I have a log periodic. It's a Tenedyne T8. And you can't really see it there, but because it's just a wire, but there's an inverted L that runs from the little gray box over here on the side, which is the feed point, up near the top of the rotor, or around the rotator, and then diagonally across to this pecan tree over here. And that log periodic is good for, that inverted L is good for 160 and 80 meters. I have a switch in the middle or a switch in it that I actually have to open to separate it for the 2 bands, but it takes me about 3 or 4 minutes to do that. This is another antenna I use. This is an AV 640 from High Gain. This antenna works 6 through 40 meters. It's just a vertical. It's elevated. It's about 10 feet off the ground. And now kind of my secret weapons for the low bands. I have two U's. It's kind of hard to see here, but there's three poles.
What's that
Here's
stand
one.
for?
It's a U is an upside down. It's two verticals that are phased with a transmission line on the top of the verticals. So the verticals are upside down, and they're not connected to. They're not connected to. Well, they're connected to ground either through a transformer or through a termination resistor. And so this pair of U's, if fed at this end, looks north and south. This pair of U's fed at this end looks toward Europe. If you put the feed on this end and the termination resistor on that end, it looks toward Australia and the South Pacific. So you have to move it manually, but it works pretty well. These have helped me out a lot on the low bands. You know, it's small, so it's not like it's a game changer, but I've worked a number. I have many situations where I have been able to copy and work stations using these two antennas where I could not hear them on that inverted L, and it's mostly because of the noise.
So the part of these antennas that's close to the soil are actually not contacting the soil. The active end of where the feed point is up in the air. Is that right? Do I understand that?
No, I've confused you. See the little gray box here?
Yeah.
That's the feed. So the antenna is fed at the bottom between ground, just a simple ground rod, not a array of radials or anything, just tied to ground. And then the antenna, there we go. The antenna goes up like this, and it's about 17 feet high, 15 feet high. And then the transmission line that connects it to its counterpart goes across through the trees like this to the other pole, and then down to the ground. And there's another little box here, and this box contains the termination resistor. And
I never heard of it. I'll look it up online. So it's called an EW. If I look it up, EWE, I'll find it online.
Absolutely.
I've never heard of that.
And an EWE is a female sheep. So I don't know how that comes.
I'm a reproductive endocrinologist. That part I already knew.
Hot dog. Okie doke. Interesting QSL cards. This is my SU9VB card. It was on 40 meter CW, I believe. And I too have one of the Egyptian 1 pound notes. Just a neat card. And this is one that we got recently. This is my card from ZD9W on Tristan da Cunha, which I think this was country number 321 number 320 for me or something like that. So that's my story. Anybody got questions?
Yeah, Roby, I have one. This is Tuna. So what bands do you prefer?
6 and 160.
Okay, so the average, so the average of that is what, 20?
Yeah. So I operate 160 through 6 meters, and I do operate some 2 meter digital stuff as well. And you know, I kind of like Chase DX. And I've got at least 100 countries worked. I have at least 200. Well, let's say I have at least 100 countries worked on 60, on 160, 80, 60, 40. You know, up to 10 meters, and I'm about I've got about 80 on 6 meters. So I'm pretty my kind of my motto is any band, any mode.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Sure. Okay. Next.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go and show the shack. I'm not quite as prepared, but that's okay. I did take these as a well, it's not going to let me show my desktop. Doesn't look like. Maybe.
There it comes.
I'm not sure what y'all see. Let me see where I'm at here.
Looking food.
Yeah. Okay, do you see photos? Do you see an amplifier?
No,
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 no, we see some kind of a stew.
Okay.
we got echoes now.
Let me see if I can figure out where everything is. Okay. We'll try it. Let me put this into a file and then we'll try and figure it out. So, you guys go ahead and I'll be trying to make this come together.
Okay.
So I'm going to stop sharing. There we go. Okay. Let me throw those into a file that I can find.
I'll go.
Was that double voice? The echo's back.
That's
Double
that's
check.
it.
That's
I
me.
think-
Let me mute again.
That's good.
Okay, somehow no, that didn't bring up what I wanted. Somebody else is, I'll bring these things up while somebody else is trying to find it. Go ahead.
We've got your desktop now.
Yeah, okay, well, that's a start. Here, hold this. Okay, here you go. All right, so I said I had the oldest radio. So when I was a kid back in the early 50s, first thing I had to operate to listen to radio with was my cousin convinced me to buy a cat's whisker and build a crystal set. And I still own it, and there it and there it is.
Wow.
So I bought that online online. I bought that by mail. And I don't know if you, some of you guys may have ever had a cat's whisker. It's actually a sulfide, and they sell you this little plug. It's metal. It's a little metal plug, and the actual piece of lead sulfide is right in the middle there. And then you hunt around with this little wire, and you bend it up and down until you find an active spot. So that was the idea of it. And so the way it ran was you made here's a schematic diagram of a crystal set. And so I typically what you did to be really cool was you wound the coil of wire on and Quaker Oats container.
Yeah.
And so here's mine. I built this for actually this is the crystals, the cat's whisker I was telling you about. There is my rendition of winding a coil. This is actually a capacitor that I have. I think came out of a Viking matchbox, and this is a more latter day. This came from when my daughter was in junior high school, and I resurrected the crystal set to demonstrate how that worked. But that was so there was a contactor here that slid along the wire at the top, but that's the way it works. So when I was a kid, that was the first thing I had, and then the earphones had to be high impedance, and I had a pair of 1910 Baldwin earphones, which were high impedance, had mica diaphragms in them. At least it belonged to my dad, who was W9CY at the time, and so I had that on. So now let me move along to my own setup. So probably you guys probably know I was very active in all kinds of stuff on HF until I left Houston in 1995 and moved to San Diego to take a job out there. And so from 1995 until the spring of about a year ago, spring of 2023. I had never even listened to a signal, let alone have a radio on the air. So back then, I got interested again in trying to figure out some way to get on the radio, and so I bought a rig which was I first saw advertised right on here. It's a K3 that W4WJ in Fredericksburg, Texas, was a silent key, died at the radio. And sorry, he was on the air, died on the air, and so a friend of his there in Fredericksburg. By the way, that's where a Gator in 5RZ lives. But anyway, so the guy advertised it on here on the TDXS reflector, and so I just popped on it and got it. So there in the corner is the K3, and Kim Carr has been very helpful to help me get fired up. On the right, recently I bought also an IC 7300 from a local ham here that I know. And interestingly, sitting on top of the ice of that thing, if you can see it, is a black box with a meter on it, and that is a reflected power meter that I built. I used to work for an outfit when I was in high school and college called Communication Associates Inc., and that's why I started learning to wire commercially and stuff like that. And that is a forward and reflected power meter that I built or one of the ones that I built when I worked on their production line back in the early 1960s, and to have an SWR bridge sort of thing for the radio, I popped that out the other day and got it running. So this is me, and so since I have only I'm in an area that actually does not allow for where the heck is it now? Hang on a second. I'm getting ahead of anyway. So I'm in an area that's not allowed to have antennas. I'm in a subdivision. So what I bought is as a Comet all band HF vertical, or 80 through 6 meters. And it's just a single vertical, it's end fed, it's got kind of a funny loading coil to it, and it doesn't require any radials or anything. And it works pretty well. And it only weighs about 7 pounds. So I have it mounted on a post on the back of my deck, and I can put it up and take it down and very quickly. So that's sort of the way it works. And so because I only have a 100 watts and a kind of a marginal antenna, I do nothing but search and pounce. I don't try to CQ on anything. I work a lot of the CWTs and a lot of the other CW contests. One last comment I'll make: if you look over here in this below the 7300, if you can see that. There is another Keir paddle. That was one that belonged to my dad, and had sat in my box for 30 years or more after he passed away. And I suddenly thought, I said, I need another Keir paddle to use with this 7300. So I dragged that out of the box the other day, took it all apart, cleaned up all the brass. It's made out of, I forget who the hell made it, but anyway, it's made out of solid brass. It's a double paddled version of a bencher. I use a bencher as a standard Keir paddle, but it's kind of fun to get the old one that my dad had and get it fired up again. And with that, I'll turn it back to everybody else.
Okay.
Anybody? Any questions? All right, that's it.
I guess I can go. I didn't come prepared because I actually thought I was going to go to the BVARC Awards banquet tonight. But I was on the radio this morning going to work, and I rarely turn my radio on in the car. And the president, Mike Hardwick, was on. I talked to him for a few minutes, and I said, "Well, I'll see you tonight." And he says, "Oh, the banquet's been postponed." I didn't even know. So I would have driven all the way over there. It would have probably been taken an hour from where I work to drive over there. And he said, "Oh, it was in the newsletter." All right, well, that shows you how much I read their newsletter. There's one newsletter I read every month for sure. So let me share a few things here. So I've showed this to the guys before, but this is installation of my stepper antenna. One of the times that I installed. This is not my current configuration, but this is a bunch of guys, or you can see the video okay?
Yes.
Okay. So there we are. There it is at the base of the tower. I can't even remember who's climbing there, who's up there. But I had a nice crew. There we are getting ready to pull it up. I've got a winch, a 12-volt winch over here is what I'm using. And so there we've got it. I had a drone, or maybe it was Chris's drone. I can't remember. Anyway, so we had a drone going.
That was Chris's drone.
Yeah, that's right. It was Chris. So he's operating his drone, and he sent me his video. So this is not my current config. Well, actually, this one is, because I got 2 loops. Yeah, there's 2 loops. So this is my current configuration. So this is my crank up tower. It's a high gain HG70 HD. They don't sell it anymore. It's a very heavy duty tower. Apparently you can still buy the base, but you can't buy the tower anymore. So a couple of pictures of whoever it was climbing. Who was that? Was that the
Mark, I think.
Adam Bayard or Mark? I don't remember now.
Mark was up there.
Oh yeah, it is Mark. I can
Mark,
tell.
yeah.
Yeah, that's Mark. So he's up there doing some connections and whatnot. I guess it's not exactly in order, but so I'm just going to show you what my configuration. This is one of those. What do they call that? I forgot.
Killam's grip.
A Killam's grip. That's right. This is a split Killam's grip. So this is a Killam's grip that actually comes open, and you wrap it around your cables, and then you actually kind of sew it up. It's I bought this online from somebody, and I should have bought an extra, but it's been up there ever since. So it's been doing fine. So here we are. I guess it was around COVID time, right? So
Yeah.
there we all are being very careful.
December or something.
Yeah. So that just kind of shows you how big it is. There are bigger antennas out there, but that one's pretty good. And this one actually,
it looks, Alan, it looks really cool with the sun bearing down. It looks like about 95 elements.
that way. Well, this is a loop element, and this is another loop element. It's kind of
Now,
hard.
how do I know
here.
you're not showing me the shadow instead of the real aluminum?
Well, it's not aluminum. It's fiberglass.
Iridium, whatever, plutonium, whatever it's made out of.
It's fiberglass.
Whatever.
And these are, I don't know if we get a nice close-up somewhere along the line. Maybe we will. There's the winch I was using to pull it up. There's that Killam's grip again. But what it is, if you guys who are not familiar with stepper antennas, is that there's a motor, there's a housing with 2 rolls of copper beryllium strip and a stepper motor. And let me get to something that's different here. You can't really tell here. Dang it, don't have again, I wasn't prepared. I'm just going through some stock stuff I had. But anyhow, the tape actually extends through these elements, through these fiberglass elements. And the loop one, like this one here, is for 30 and 40 meters. So on 30 meters, I'm not really sure where it stops. But at 40 meters, it goes all the way around. So it's basically like folded dipoles on 40. Apparently you lose about a half a dB. So not a whole lot. There's a good view of the element. You can see they're quite flexible. And so there we are walking it over. Lots of pictures. I have this nice ladder. It's permanently fixed, I guess. It's permanently standing by my tower. My next door neighbor gave it to me. It's fiberglass ladder. And you probably may have seen on a previous slide that actually that's a platform right there. So it makes it real easy. I mean, if you ever climbed a crank up tower, I don't know how many of you guys have tried climbing up crank up towers, but it's a son of a bitch to climb those damn things. And then there's no place to put your foot to work up here. So one of the companies that sells antenna stuff used to sell this platform. I think it cost $400. It's quite expensive, but to me, it's worth it because it makes it very easy to work on the antenna up there.
Is it attached to the tower or attached to the step ladder?
It's attached to the tower. It's on the very top of the bottom section.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's permanently attached. Yeah. It's galvanized steel. So
I've had one for several years.
A drone. So see if we
Go
can
ahead,
see
Don.
anything else.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a technologically challenged here tonight. You may have noticed I've been futzing with my camera. I couldn't get it working, but I've got one of those steps.
Yeah.
It's made by a guy here in Utah. His name is Chris, Kilo Mike 7 Papa, KM7 Metalworks. And
Yeah.
I love it. It just makes climbing a crank up piece of cake.
Well, he don't sell them anymore.
Oh, he doesn't?
No, he stopped selling them
Okay.
several years ago. These are
Oh,
where
okay.
the actual stepper motor is in and the tape. And so there's two loop elements. This is the driven element here. That's the reflector, first director, second director. So I effectively have 4 elements on 20 through 10. I have 2 elements on 30 and 40. And these are 6 meter elements right here, these little ones. And this is, so this is actually a Frankenstein antenna. This started out being just a plain 4 element. And then I bought the loop, so I'd have rotatable dipole on 30 and 40. And then one of my neighbors, not too far from here, his tower failed, and he gave me the pieces off of his stepper. So I put another loop on there. It's now officially a DB32. And this is a added on reflector. He gave me this element from his 6 meters, parasitic element, because this reflector is too far away. It's too far back from the driven element. So that's a fixed reflector now. And it really helped out the 6 meter operation a lot. See if we have any other good pictures to show you.
So are all the guys on the tower hams?
Yeah, well, everyone there is a ham.
Thanks.
Yeah. That actually looks like, this must be, that doesn't look like Mark anymore.
No.
That's Adam Bayard.
Yes.
He's a professional tower climber, and he's the son of the guy who gave me all the parts, which I still got a bunch of parts left over. So, and Doug, you were there, right?
Yeah. I see my truck over there. The way
Yeah.
one.
So I know there's kind of a lot of repetitive stuff here. The this is an old this mast here I've had this mast for about 40 years. I bought it at a used metal store, metal place. I think it's actually water pipe, but it has had 3 beams on it. It's lasted through huge windstorms. You know, normally you'd think if it's a water pipe, it's not very strong. It's been working fine all these years. I've repainted it several times. It's really rusty. What else can I show you?
Yeah,
there's,
pictures.
there's the beam up there. So what else? This is after I repainted it. You can see it's nice and green. The original paint, it fades out in the sun quite a bit. I repainted it twice with some of that Krylon stuff from Ace Hardware. That stuff doesn't last. So finally, I got some marine paint. And of course, I haven't checked it since I put the marine paint on there, but it seems to be holding up pretty good. So that's Mark again. I guess maybe Mark and Adam were both up there that time.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I mean, I can't remember. Can't remember what I forgot.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what CRS stands for. So there it is in all its glory. This is taken from my shack window. Now, currently, one of these truss wires has broken or slipped out or something. Something broke. So only one truss wire is up there right now. And I guess in the spring, I'm gonna have to take the whole thing down to fix it. No, maybe not. Maybe I can hire a lift. But anyhow, that's the way it is. This is a 160-meter wire right here coming off my high gain tower, my 18 HT. And that's just, you know, that's the insulator right there. So what I was doing, it was coming off the high gain and I had it angled up. And so it would, so I was told that would work better. Whether it did or not, I don't know.
So Alan, this is Tuna. Quick question. Let me make sure I understand here. So the loop at the far end in the right view that we have here right now, that's the driven. I'm sorry, that's the reflector, and the driven element is close to the tower, and the front element is to the left.
This is a driven element here.
Okay, and so
that's a reflector.
Where is? Yeah.
That's a Director 1 and Director 2.
So why is the Director 2 so long compared to the driven element? So is that just a?
Well, it's because it's a loop element as opposed to a standard element. So that way I can use this as 30 and 40 meter 2 element beam.
Okay, I'll look it up. I'm not familiar with the way steppers are designed, but that kind of surprised me. I kept looking to figure out that the one on the right would be the reflector because it's so much seems like it's physically longer than anything else on the beam on the
don't let the size of the element fool you. It's the size, it's the length of the tape inside the element. Because the element that you see is not the radiator or the director. This is just a conduit for the tape that's driven inside.
Okay,
so it can be any length.
Okay, thanks. I'm not familiar with stepper beams. I'll look it up. Thanks a lot. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and it's interesting stuff.
So how many acres do you have all this on?
2 acres.
And where?
I'm in Richmond, Texas.
Okay. And how many acres do you have out there?
2.
Gotcha. Thank you.
2 acres. That's a tail twister rotator. The hole that this is in is 4 by 5 by 8 feet deep.
Nice.
And it's loaded with QSL cards. So, and speaking of QSL cards, I'll show you 2 or 3 here. I'll have to hold them up for you. So course, this is an interesting one that a lot of people that I like, and I got it on 3 bands, but no CW. This is like back from 1972, back when I was pretty young, running phone patches all the time. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And this is very, very coveted and very, very rare QSL card. I know probably none of you guys have this card. This is probably the rarest card I have. So this is the card that I used when I operated in Russia. So actually, I take that back. I got one that's even rarer. It's this one here. Let me grab it. So this is the card I used when I operated in Chad. So I made a total of 50 QSOs in Chad. And I made up my own QSL card. I printed them out and sent them to all my contacts. And then the ARRL came back, or no, one of the guys I sent a card to came back and said the ARRL wasn't accepting it. Well, I hadn't sent them any documentation. So I sent them the documentation and they accepted it.
Who'd you work for that you ended up in Russia and in Saigon, and with you? Were you with the CIA or somebody? Or who?
No. When I was in Russia, I was working for Solar Turbines. So I was doing some commissioning work on some fire alarm systems on a couple of compressor stations. The interesting thing about it was that they had the contract for 2 compressor stations, and in the middle of construction, they decided that these compressor stations were for a pipeline that was going to run through Siberia. In the middle of building these things, they canceled the pipeline. But we had a contract to build them, some of the bitches, so we built them. Now, there was no gas to run them with. I don't know how they ever tested them. The other thing is, another little interesting story about that project was I met a couple of the guy that helped me get my license. All right. The guy that helped me get my license, I asked him if there was any hams in the area. So he told me about these couple of guys. They're about 25 clicks away. And they actually drove over to pick me up, took them back to their place, which was in Megion. I think it was Megion. No, Lagipas. Lagipas was the name of the town. And I spent a couple of nights there. They didn't hardly speak any English, but they were CW contesters. So we didn't have to talk. So we just did CW. Drank a lot of beer and vodka. Did a few contests. That was a lot of fun. In Chad, the guy that helped me get my license was actually the security manager for the camp that I was working at. At that time, I was working for KBR. And so he had a ham license too. And he gave me a radio when I first got there, but I didn't have an antenna. I wasn't going to bring a radio because I didn't have a license until I got there. So, you just don't bring radios to certain places. So he gave me a radio, but it was channelized on 40-meter sideband, but down in the CW band, RCW band, but it was phone band for them. I never had an antenna for that. He had an antenna over by his security office, but it didn't work with a hooey. So then he took me over to another camp that had a better antenna, and I got them to program another radio with some decent frequencies on 20 sideband that I could operate. I made about 50 Qs, and he says, time to go. So that was it. And that was my entire DXpedition experience in Chad. So, any questions?
Is that your rig behind you?
No, the rig's in front of me, actually. That's my office computer set up behind me.
Hmm.
I now have 3 monitors. I don't know if I can turn it. I set it up for 3 monitors because a lot of times I'm working on documents and I have to refer to 2 or 3 other sources, so I'll be looking at this one and looking at that one and maybe copy and paste from here to there. So I had 2 monitors, and then I had a third one on the shelf. They're all 3 different monitors. And the third one that I just put in is a little bit smaller, but I found it's really helpful to have a lot of real estate. So it made me, it makes me more efficient in doing my work. So I have a laptop that I work 3 days in the office: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday and Friday I work at home, and so it's very convenient. But I'm probably going to retire in about a year or 2. So enough of that work shit.
Anybody else want to show and tell?
I got mine.
Okay.
Let me see if I can work.
I sell these too, by the way.
I got a couple cards.
Well, you can't see, but behind me, I've got every DXQSL card I ever received. Well, I guess you can see. See right up here? They're stacked all the way up to the ceiling. There's about 15,000 QSL cards there. Why am I keeping them? Couldn't tell you.
Bear with me a
Anybody
second.
Anybody ever seen this one?
No.
No.
From 1982. A couple, I guess you'd call them slim. A couple guys decided to go out and create a stir. So they went out and generated some pileups and worked a jillion guys. And then several months later, this card appeared. I worked them along with everybody else. Several months later, this card appeared from the Bureau. It says KI3L. That was my call back then.
Yeah.
Suitland Island.
What
Says,
island?
well, it's a pirate operation, but he says this island surfaced for 2 days in the minds of DXers seeking a new one. You cracked the pileup. That's it. Here's another one. Remember that one?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
I got one of his cards somewhere around here.
Yeah, most old timers have got that one. Tom Christian,
Tom Christian, yeah.
a descendant of Fletcher.
Is guys? I think there's still a ham from his lineage on the island, isn't there? I think there is.
Yeah, there's a woman there.
A daughter or
Yeah.
granddaughter or something.
Yeah, who's a ham?
Yeah,
Miranda.
that's
Is
her.
that her name, Miranda?
I
I
don't.
think that's right.
Oh.
2/3 of the people on the island are probably his descendants, huh?
A couple of sheep and a goat.
Yeah. Here's one. You probably haven't seen this one either. Whoops.
1Z9A. No, I don't know that one.
That was the Karen National Union. It was a breakaway from the government in Myanmar. It never was official. It never was accepted for anything.
Yeah.
Kim, were you working for Cameron Iron in those days?
Well, from 1975 until 92.
But I'm saying why I'm trying to figure out why you were in these various countries. Was that part of Cameron Iron or was it something else?
The only one that was part of Cameron was the PY and the G0.
Okay.
The others were just places I happened to go. Like I went down to operate CQ Worldwide with K5KG when he was down in Argentina.
Okay.
And that's how I got that one. And I had a brother-in-law lived in Ketchikan, Alaska. I went up there. The others are my early calls.
Catch me if you can, Alaska.
Yeah. All right. So that's me. And my station is out in Oak Ridge Ranch near Weimer. I bought this small ranch out there the year before I retired because I was bound and determined I was going to have me a decent station to operate when I retired. So that's what I got. Here's my antennas. The tower you see on the right there is the K0XG rotating base, which is down here. And it turns 120 feet of RON 55 held up in the air with some 6700i Philly strand. And all the antennas are side mounted because the whole tower turns. So at the bottom here, I've actually got two of these. All of these are made by Ken Garg at JK Antennas, and he was really nice to help me out with the design. And he actually modified some dimensions on all of these antennas so that they, instead of being in the middle of the band, were more resonant and had a little bit more gain at the bottom end. So they're all optimized for CW. They still work in the phone band for the 3Qs Centennial. I go up there.
What kind of torque does it take to rotate that?
A lot. It's got a 1/2 horsepower DC motor at the bottom with 2 gear reductions on it. And if you stand underneath it while it's turning and then it stops, it'll make you pucker because that tower twists easily 20, 25 degrees.
Oh my goodness.
Jesus.
Now I'm adding this spring. I've got a pulse width modulated motor controller that I'm going to put in the bottom that will ramp up, run to whatever location I want it to, and then it when it gets close to where it needs to be, it starts ramping down the power to the motor, and it slows down the turn of the tower. It's not going to eliminate the twist, but it'll make it a lot better. So down at the bottom, we've got a 6-element 20 meter, and these are all full-size antennas. There's no loaded antennas. And I have a third one up here at the top, not the top, the second antenna down is also a 6-element 20. And he's up at 115 feet. So these two are connected with a stack match, which you can't see, but it's right about there on the tower. And I can stack them or talk on either antenna independently. The very top is my favorite antenna of all of them. It's a full-size 4-element 40. It hits on a 46-foot boom and weighs 385 pounds.
Wow.
Yep, it's a biggie. That antenna, man, there's very few pileups. I'm not first or second guy through the pileup on 40.
Hey, Kim, is that, I'm trying to look at the elements on that 4-element 40 up there. 2 of them look really close. Is that kind of a log periodic dipole array for the first 2 for the driven elements? Is that the way that works?
No, all of these are what's called OWA design. The science of the matter is if you put the first, or the driven element rather, close to the first director, the feed point impedance on the driven element is damn near 50 ohms, and it's very broadband. So by doing that, I've got no matching networks on any of the antennas. They're all direct fed from the balun. And of course, this is the reflector, the driven element, the first director, and then out here is the second director. They're called OWAs, and you'll find a lot online to read about on those. Apparently they work pretty good. On 15, this up here is the 10 and 15, it's at 80 feet. And it has 5 elements on 15, 6 elements on 10. And they're 2 separate Yagis. And the driven elements are tied together and fed by a single balun.
They're on the same boom?
On the same boom.
Okay.
And
I would think those would interact a heck of a lot. That's interesting.
Well, Ken Garg at JK had the professional version of EasyNet, and he proved to me that they don't. Gave him a bunch of computer runs up in it.
I'll take
So-
his word for it. I'm looking at all that stuff, spaghetti close to each other. I thought, what really?
Well, there's no harmonic relationships in there.
No, I understand. I was just saying from, standing here looking at the perspective of all the little horizontal pieces sticking there. That was all I was thinking about.
Yeah, I understand. Well,
I've heard you on 40, man, and I can get guarantee you're right when you say you were loud on 40 meters.
I can go head to head with a lot of the East Coast. I mean, guys like K3LR that have, stacked 40-meter antennas pointed towards Europe. He's going to get through before I will. But I beat everybody that has a 2-element up on the East Coast, and I don't know of too many guys that give me a lot of grief. And my favorite thing to do is not so much to run Europe; it's to get on and run JAs in the South Pacific in the mornings.
Yeah,
That all
yeah.
stems back to my
Texas
first.
is a great. I used to do that when I lived out there with you guys. I used to love to run 40, early morning 40-meter JA run.
And back then they had a license class that was limited to 10 watts. And that was the real thrill was, in ARRL where they're transmitting their power was to work a guy that was running 10 watts. Anyway, the tower rotates inside 2 guy rings. There's one here where the mouse is. There's another one down here. And of course the guy wires, they're outside on the outside of the bearing, and the inside of the bearing is bolted to the tower. So the tower turns inside the bearing, all sitting on this giant, it's called a crane bearing at the bottom that supports all the weight. So I don't have quite as much concrete under mine as Alan has under his. Mine only goes down 6 feet. It was 6 by 6 by 6. And there's nothing sunk in it. It's just reinforced concrete. And the entire weight of the tower sits on the K0XG rotating base, which is then permanently attached to the concrete.
Well, you got guys, so, believe it or not, I had a guide tower once with 0 concrete. I just stuck it in a hole because it was guide.
Now, the antenna you probably cannot see on here because I'm looking and I don't even see it. I guess it might be outside the frame. I have a 80-meter 4-square, 4 verticals. And the Dacron ropes that support those verticals comes off this 100-foot point here and goes out northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, and the verticals drop down and they sit on top of a 10-foot 4x4 post or 12-foot 4x4 post that's 2 feet in the ground. And so the feed point is 10 feet off the ground. The vertical goes up from there. And there's a single radial that runs the direction of the Dacron rope. So the northeast radial, which would be this one over here in this corner, that radial runs to the northeast from the feed point. And it's suspended 10 feet off the ground as well. And if you're interested in that design, it's in the low band DXing handbook, ON4UN's book. And that's pretty much what I put up. That 80-meter antenna is amazing. I've got 25 dB front to back between Europe and the Southwest. And it's a little bit lower to the Northwest to JA, but it's about 20 dB front to back that way.
Kim, do you run it with a single feed point, single feed line and some switching out there, or do you run individuals coax?
4 feed lines that join up to a impedance matching network and a phasing network. It's all in one box with a whole bunch of toroids right at the base of the tower. And then I have a single run of LMR 400 that runs to the shack. And I've got a controller that selects whatever relays I need to switch the phasing so that it points the right direction.
Gotcha.
That's the inside of the station. Pair of K3s. I've got 2 Alpha 76s, one here and one just out of frame off to the right. That is for this radio. I've got this thing. I was looking, can I see my stack match? Where's my stack match? Is it out of frame too? I know it's in frame now. This picture's about a year old. I reorganized the desktop here. And kind of like Alan, I've got two monitors as well. I've got two 22-inch monitors, different manufacturers, but the computer doesn't care. This says 24s, maybe they're 24s. I've got the YCCC, the Yankee Contest Club SO2R controller here that keeps these two radios under control, and it talks to N1MM with a protocol that it understands so that you can switch between radios with keyboard commands, or you can put a second keyboard here. And I'm experimenting with a second keyboard now because every time I think I'm on the left radio, I'm on the right radio, or vice versa. If you have separate keyboards, you just move your hands over to another keyboard, you know what radio you're on. I am not very good at SO2R. I'm doing a lot of learning. This little box back here is an Astron RS-35M. I said it was not visible, but you can actually see it. This little gray box over here is a homebrew box that I built that takes the band information out of the back of the K3 and controls a 2x6 antenna switch, which is just on the other side of this wall here where all the coax terminates. And I use a bencher. Very little, but I use it. Equipment not shown is this 80-meter 4-square controller. It was out of frame. It's now in right in front of the radio. I designed it, made the software, and it has the relays that drive the 4-square controller box out at the tower. This is a classic example of what I call project creep. I started out with a simple logic design. I could have done it with a ladder logic controller. I just wanted to do it with an Arduino. So I designed the thing, and I thought, gee, wouldn't it be nice if it fed back in Morse code to me? So then I added code that caused it, when you hit the northeast button, it sends an R for Roger space NE out in CW. Probably spent more time doing that than I did the whole rest of the controller. The second alpha I mentioned, the homebrew band decoder I mentioned. There's two of those because I need one on each of the K3s to select antennas from the antenna switch, which is a KK1L board. You buy the board and you build it into your own box. Works great. Don't have any issues with that. And it's designed so that it's interlocked, and no, the rigs cannot select the same antenna ever. That's a good idea, because then you'd have RF coming back into one of the rigs. And the 2x6 switch is prioritized so that rig 1, if it has an antenna, rig 2 can't take it away from it. The converse is not true. If rig 1 wants the antenna, he can take it away from the other rig, and the other rig just goes deaf. I have a couple of spare amps that I've picked up over the years that I don't use. I've got an SB220 and a Dentron 2000L, which is a 3CX 1500 with a total of 2400 volts on the plate. It's a wimpy amplifier. I want to get an L4B power supply to power that amp. Make it a real amplifier. All right, I'm down to my favorite QSL cards, and instead of picking rare things, I thought I would pick things that had other TDXSers in them. This is the
I was stacking those. I was stacking those in the garage.
Yeah.
Yeah, the leftover ones. You want one?
This is in 1985 when George DeMontrond here in the upper left and K5LZO got together, decided they wanted to go to Desacheo, which you have to have all kinds of government permissions to go there. But they got it, and they took a group to Desacheo for, I think it was 11 days. So anyway, that's their card. The QSOs are listed on the back, and I think this is my 40-meter CW card. There's one you may not have seen. That's K5GN's de-expedition to YV5TK. Again, 1985. Yeah, it's another 40-meter card. This one was operated by Jan, K5MA, TDXSer, and he was on business with Cameron, went to Tehran just before Tehran fell, and the whole government changed. But he got on and worked a bunch of club members and a few others. So that's how I got EP. How many went to Mexico in XE2FU?
Me,
Yeah, I went on a different trip from this one. There were several trips where we went to XE2FU. I was on the first one that went down. A lot of fun, man.
let me tell you, can I interrupt just a second, Kim, tell you guys a quick anecdote about the XE2FU story. We went down with these mobile homes and we had all these rigs and the stuff. And the deal was we were going to go in and somebody knew some generalissimo at the entrance point so that we could get through Mexican customs with all this stuff. And so we get down there in this parking lot, and some young customs inspector started going into the RV, one of the RVs, and this generalissimo sort of looked over the guy and said, "No, no, 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 nada, nada." So we went down and we ran the rigs, and then I had a ball down there. But on the way back, we come back with the RVs full of gear back into Mexico, back into the U.S. Now we go through U.S. customs, and we come in, and these guys said, "How did you people ever get this stuff into Mexico in the first place?"
Yep,
And
I
that's it.
remember that. I remember that. And I think the last one, no, anybody know this guy? He's a TDXSer.
Yep.
Jay Temple, W5JQ. He lives up in Colorado now. Gets on the air occasionally. I think I've caught him one time when he was up there. But he was a geophysicist, I think independent, and would work with oil companies to help them find the stuff underground. And lastly, there's one of my cards from G0 Land. I didn't make all that many cues. I was over there about 2 years, but did a lot of traveling. Still got to get on. And over there, you don't have the option of not belonging to the local or the RSGB. In order to get a license, you have to be a member. All the stink we got going on right now, that may not be the case here.
It's terrible, ain't it?
It is. And that is it. That's my last slide.
Anybody else? Silence. Okay, well, it's been fun. Oh, Bill, you're muted.
Yeah, before you go, if have you guys got just a second? I wanted to raise a quick comment as a former TDXSer and now back on the air, and I live here in Eastern North Carolina, and I'm a member of another radio club. And one of the things that I have noticed is the fact that this club has a bunch of people our age. There aren't a lot of some DXers. There don't seem to be any particular contesters, but they have got a slew of people who've been licensed within the last 1, 2, 3, 5 years with, KO4, this K, whatever. And a lot of these people are very technically savvy people, PhDs. From one of the guys I've been talking with for instance, used to be at Bell Labs, a PhD, worked at Bell Labs, and several of these guys are they know more about computing and linking and stuff like that than you can imagine. And one of the things I was looking at the membership list for TDXS the other day on the website, and there's nobody who seems to have a call that that is recent. I would just encourage you guys to try to figure out some way to to get people who are just into radio. A lot of these guys that I've met are they might have come out of CB or who knows what, but a lot of them are very, very smart and very, very technically competent. And so, I mean, I'm just astounded to sit around and look at the TDXS list. So for what my opinion is worth, you got to figure out some way to try to do that. But the fact that somebody's got a KJ5 call doesn't make him an idiot. It just makes him new to the game. And that's it.
I agree with
All
you.
right, duly noted.
We haven't had any ideas come forward as to how to accomplish something like that. Several years back, the membership requirements were changed so that basically you could fill out an application and say, I'm interested and get in. But we don't see those people at meetings or things like this.
No, they seem to go to Beaver Ark instead.
Yeah, it seems like parks on the air is the big thing these days.
Well, that's a good play. You know, I got interested in that back in the summertime. That's an example of something where, you know, a lot of people, now a lot of these guys are just in, you know, all they're interested in doing is turning on their computer and working FTA to 40 meters or something like that. But, yeah, I'm just telling you, there's a lot of guys out there who are very technically savvy about a lot of stuff. And I've certainly discovered that there are a couple of people. I joined one of the local clubs, and yeah, there are a bunch of old gaffers like me. There are a lot of guys who got brand new calls, and they are very, very knowledgeable about stuff.
You have to find a couple of those kind of guys who can draw other folks in. That sort of sees the field.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
that
We're aware of
don't
it. Yeah,
figure
we're
out some
aware
way
of
to do it.
We're aware of it.
Yeah. All right, stay off my frequency, damn it.
Well, thank you all for coming and participating tonight, and it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been fun. Good to see all your shacks and stuff.
And next month we'll be talking about remote ham radio.
Oh, by the
Oh.
way, speaking of future meetings, I talked to the current Centerpoint RFI locator guy, and I asked him if he would be interested in doing a presentation. And he said, sure.
Oh,
So we'll
great.
set him up for a future meeting. His name is Patrick Wilkes, and he seems to be pretty much on the ball. So he's cleaned up some of my noise. Not all of it, but and he even sent me an email yesterday and today, showed me a whole bunch of pictures, and he showed me his test equipment. And he showed me the displays on his test equipment, showing the noise that he's seeing from the poles that are around me. So, pretty nice guy.
Really?
I shall get a hold of
Well,
him.
you can also remind him that that Centerpoint raised their piece of the fees that we get charged on our electric bills, regardless of who you buy your electricity from. Centerpoint delivers it 45%.
45? Wow.
Really.
My bill went up like $37.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's $37 out of the fees. My bill's $300 a month from usage and fees combined.
Well, Kim, if you ran less power, you wouldn't have nearly as high an electric bill.
Oh, out at the ranch, I've got a co-op out there. They're pretty nice. But here at home,
I'm just pulling your chain, dude.
I know. I know. My pool pump draws more power than my shack does.
All right, I'm out of here, folks. Been a lot of fun chatting with you guys. We'll see you. 73.
See
73
you,
all.
Dr. Tuna.
Good night.
See y'all next
Good
time.
night.
What happened to Leslie?
I think he had continued problems with feedback or something.
Doug,
Yeah.
Bill K9HZ has agreed to do the April program on contesting equipment.
Right.
I sent you that email, so hopefully we can get a good crowd for that meeting.
Yeah, I've got that listed.
Okay. All right. Thanks. We'll see you later.
See you on the air, I hope.
So long, y'all.